All right. Hi everybody. My name is Kat Scheffler and this is Cox Talks. I actually went live a couple hours ago and tried to do a video that had some issues, so hopefully this one goes and uploads smoothly. So my apologies for anyone who tried to watch that one. But I'm gonna go ahead and redo it and try not to make any mistakes because going live is kind of nerve-wracking. But this is live, so if you guys want to type in, let me know that you're here, or if you have any questions, then I'm happy to answer them. So this video is going to be about coxing a practice. Okay, so in coxing a practice, there's kind of the calls that you can make and how to make different kinds of calls. And then there's of course the logistical side of coxing. Logistically, just the things that you want to do in every practice, no matter what you're doing, is you want to know where you are, as in where you're going, where the other boats are in your relationship to them, and where the buoys are. Obviously, the buoys is obvious. We don't want to hit buoys. We don't want to hit land, any of those things. Being aware of the other boats, whether it's boats on your team or boats, paddle boarders, any of that, it is really important to be aware of them. The thing that's going to make the biggest impression on, say, your coach is when you are next to other boats. You want to stay near them, but B, you don't want to get in their way. So if you have other boats that you are practicing with, you want to kind of steer next to them. If you get too far away and your coach wants the boats to stay together, you guys can add in a pause or bring the rate down so that you don't get too far down the waterway. Same if you're falling behind and all the boats and the coaches are further up. You can shorten your pause or just do something to try to catch up a little bit. And then also when you guys are next to each other, look over your shoulder, make sure you're not cutting boats off. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves as a coxswain, is when you are going to go around a buoy, but you're all maybe doing like a racing piece or something, leave room for the other coxswains, leave room for the other boats. If you are on the outside turn, guys, this is a practice, so you're not racing, like real racing. You don't need to take the absolute best perfect course. You want to be fair to your teammates, so leave room for all the boats to go around the buoy, and just be aware of those things. If you're the faster boat, you can take the widest course. Go ahead, just take the longest course around a buoy or around an island. It'll help keep the boats together. There's no reason in a practice or during drills to take like the fastest course possible, because they're just going to separate the boats more. So those kinds of things, we kind of call like common sense. Coaches usually think of these things as common sense because it makes sense to them. It's kind of not, but try to think of those things from the perspective of your coach. Know what you're going to do, write them down if you have to, know what you're going to be doing in your practice, and how to efficiently communicate that to your team. So if you don't know what something is, or maybe what a drill is for, always ask your coach. You can also communicate with your stroke seat if you have questions. Those kinds of things are super duper important. Okay, so now let's move on to calls when we are coxing a practice. The calls that we make are kind of harder. It's not as intuitive, but if you've kind of mastered, or at least mostly mastered, things like steering and well, that's basically it, steering and safety, those kinds of, and basic calls, those kinds of things, then you can kind of start thinking about the more advanced level calls. So in a practice, hi Maya, my kitty cat's here to visit. All right. In a practice, you're gonna kind of have three subsets of things that you're going to be doing, 3 categories. It's either going to be drills or steady state or race pieces. So your calls are not one size fits all. You're going to have different kinds of calls depending on what you are doing in practice. So for drills, and that's going to refer to things that are like legs only drills or legs, body, arms, what's that called? Pick drill, reverse pick drill, things like that. When we're going through drills, usually we do that as a warm-up or on a technique day. You're mostly making commands. That's your number one kind of job. And you're going to be making some technical calls and just executing the drill according to what it is to make sure that you're switching pairs appropriately, you're changing things up, whether it's every 10 strokes or every minute, whatever the goal of that drill is. It's your job to make sure everyone does that and does it on time. So you want to make sure your calls are clear and concise, so that way you're switching pairs and nobody's confused as to what they're doing. If you're going back to stern 6 but you're changing up the drill, you just want to make those commands efficiently and make sense. But other than that, your job is not to like motivate them. You're not trying to get them to like hurt more than necessary. That's like a different strategy for a different type of practice. With drilling, you're going to be talking anywhere from like 10 to 80%, I'd say, of the time, because as little as 10%, if you are strictly executing the drill and maybe counting the 10 strokes, whatever it is, up to, you know, most of the time, if you are making technical calls and saying that somebody's blade is late, or that somebody is, their blade height is different than everybody else, things that you can see from the coxing seat, or the ratio, those are technical calls that you can make within a drill, especially if you know what the drill is for. Gear your technical calls towards that. If the drill is about matching up, you know, your recovery and making sure everybody is coming up the recovery at the same time, you want most of your technical calls to mirror that. And then as far as your intensity goes, intensity of voice, that is kind of a big one when we go into coxing and you get more advanced. Think about the tone of your voice and how that mirrors what they are doing, what their level of intensity is. So when you're doing drills, you shouldn't sound necessarily bored, but you also don't have to be yelling and screaming every single word. You just want your voice to be engaged, because you should be engaged and you want the rowers to be engaged in what they're doing. Technique drills can be kind of monotonous and boring, so you just want to keep them focused. So find something that you can be focused on, even if you are switching, you know, every 10. Make those calls sound like you mean them and sound like they are relevant, so that they actually listen to you when you make those calls. Otherwise, they're going to stop listening. It's just going to be boring all around. Some technical calls that you guys can make when you're doing drills, definitely start trying to listen to what your coaches say, because you can always kind of throw those back in and it's going to help you learn faster and learn more. But if you don't totally know what a drill is for, or you can't think of any technical calls to make, some go-to ones are sitting up. Everyone always needs to sit up. Everyone just needs to be taller at the release and taller at the catch. Level hands, keeping their handle height and their hand height level through the whole stroke. Ratio, meaning powerful through the water, slower on the slide. And then of course the segmentation is just getting the arms away before the body, before the legs, and then during the drive, legs first, then swing the body, then the arms in. Those are go-to calls that you're always going to need. Everyone's always messing up on them, so you can always call that, and I guarantee you one person in the boat needs that reminder. So if you just want to throw in a couple new things, those are good ones to memorize. The next kind of section of practices that you guys might be doing is going to be steady state. Steady state is similar to drills in that there's more of a technical focus than like a race, but it takes you from that purely technique focus and into a little bit more intensity. So now your main goal in a steady state piece, which if you don't know what steady state is, that's going to be like a 20-minute piece or something where you guys they're going at like an 80% pressure. It's just working on matching up, building conditioning, getting their heart rate up. So your job is mostly just to keep them on task and on track, and working hard enough to get something out of the workout. So again, you don't have to be screaming at them. They're not supposed to be going full pressure. They're not supposed to be sprinting. So your intensity level should be calm but powerful. So your voice should be composed, nothing frantic, but with a certain authority. And you're gonna probably talk anywhere from like 40 to 70%. It's like around half. Some people feel more comfortable coxing the majority of a steady state, whereas some people will talk a little bit less. And different boats and different crews are going to respond differently. You don't have to talk the whole time because it's steady state. It's not a high intensity piece, so you actually don't need to be talking, filling every silence. You can let them kind of just listen to the rhythm of the boat, figure some things out, and then you make maybe a focus call or a technical call. Those kinds of calls to bring their focus back in can be really invaluable. So you'll want to make focus 10s or even just bring their attention to something. Good ones, go-to ones are going to be 10s on ratio, making sure everyone is, call a ratio shift, bring everybody back on ratio for 10 strokes or 5 strokes. The set, working on balance, and then everyone is just focusing on balance for 10 strokes. Or catches, catch timing, catch directly into the water, whatever it is that you want to focus on with the catch, or matching up in other ways, like on the recovery, whether that's the bodies or the hand speed, or the drive, so maybe the front end or the acceleration in the back. Again, pull something that your coach has been working on. Don't just invent something new. If your coach wants to work on accelerating through the back end, that's a great thing to kind of bring into their steady state and say, let's go ahead and take some strokes to focus on accelerating. Let's take a power 10, or not a power 10, a focus 10. And you can do power 10s too, actually, in steady state. I wouldn't do like a crazy amount of them, but every once in a while, it just kind of gets everyone working together, as long as when they come off of it, you understand that through the power 10, they're not going 100%, and off the power 10, they're not then dropping to like 50%. You're kind of always around that like 80% pressure, 90% pressure. And then the last category that you're going to be coxing in a practice, if it's not a drill, it's not a steady state, it's going to be a race piece. Race pieces are the most fun. They can also be, I think, the hardest thing to learn how to cox, especially if it's your first time. Like right now in the season, you're moving into the sometimes racing pieces. That's going to be where you are on. The boat is on, the rowers are on 100%, and you as a coxswain are on 100%. So your intensity level, whatever on means to you. That might mean yelling and screaming. Probably not screaming, but that also might just mean kind of your full intensity, the speed with which you make calls, the intensity of those calls, like the words behind them, not just your tone of voice. You want to push them to be in pain and to be in more pain, which is different than, say, a technical drill. In a race piece, they're supposed to be totally 100% going for it, and you want your voice to match that, and your amount of talking in this case is going to be 100% of the time. If race pieces in a practice are, you know, slightly less than like a real race, that's okay. I always was like, race day, game day, I always stepped it up a notch. But even in a race piece, you gotta approach it as if it's a race, and you want to come in not just like, okay, like this is practice. It's, you want to be giving the energy to the rowers that you want from them too. So you're talking all the time, and mostly your calls are going to be motivational. So it's not a great time to explain a technical problem. You can make a technical call in the same way that maybe you made a focus 10 in the steady state, but the technique calls that you're going to make are going to be when you're analyzing and you've dissected a problem and you're realizing that the issue we're having with set is that some people's catches aren't matching up. Then you'll want to say, guys, let's match up the catches. Let's take a 5 just for catches to fix the set. That's a great way to maybe make a technical call without, you know, breaking it down and distracting from the intensity. You still want them to be going full pressure. So you can use that technique as like a means of focusing and even distracting them from pain. That's a useful strategy too. You don't want them only just thinking in their head, this hurts, why am I doing this? So you're giving them things to focus on, whether that is within the boat and within what they're doing, level hands, front end, ratio, or if it's out of the boat, you can be motivational because you are walking on another boat, you are moving faster, you've dropped your split, or just the speed, the distance per stroke, and you can measure that either with a speed coach or even just the puddles of the boat, looking at bow seats puddle and where that then ends, if that's going to be before your 7 seats blade hits the water, or if it's back on your stern deck, or even behind that. That's a good gauge of how fast you're going, and you can work to just say, I want to like a couple more inches on that stroke. So those are motivational things that have to do with the power and the ratio. So that way you're not only just repeating maybe your go-to, like, come on, let's go, you know, attack, which are great calls, but you know, after you've said attack 7 times, it kind of loses its emphasis. So you want to try to find other things about working together, or, you know, finding a solid rhythm, working towards a race goal. You know, are you racing at regionals in 2 months? Then you're racing, you are building your strength towards regionals. So those are all the different kinds of practice categories, you know, drills, steady state, and race pieces. Again, your intensity level and your tone of voice is really important, because your rowers are going to feed off that energy, so you want to give them the same level of energy that is required per that type of practice. And learning calls can be as easy as listening to your coach and understanding what each thing is for. So good luck, guys. If you have any questions, please shoot them over to me. You guys can comment below, letting me know if this made sense to you, because I don't know if I'm making sense. I don't know if I'm going too fast or too slow, so let me know what you guys think, or if you guys have any requests for videos in the future. So this, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time I get around to making a video. and I hope that this helps you guys. Bye. Let's see, how do I get out of here? Live video problem.